I'm going to invite next Professor Linda Yanti Sulistiawati, a professor at Gajah Mada University in Indonesia, and a senior research fellow from the Asia Pacific Center for Environmental Law, National University of Singapore, who will talk about COVID-19 cities and climate change.
So thank you for the time, the opportunity from the GPN, also for the invitation to join your STEAM network. I think it's very interesting for us, all of us around the globe, to work together on this COVID-19 issue. So continuing the previous presentations, I think it's very important for us to also talk about climate change and also legal implication of COVID-19. So my presentation will be very short because it's already very late in Singapore, and I'm usually already asleep by 10:30. So I will talk about legal implication of COVID-19, and then trying to compare COVID-19 and climate change impacts, and then I will conclude after that one. So the legal implications of COVID-19 so far, by far this is not an exhaustive list. I'm sure there will be more, but these are just the things that we spotted right away. The first one is the clashes between the rights of individual and versus government. In some countries, they have declared a state of emergency, while others opted for to use existing regulations, existing legislation, and with additional regulations. But in both cases, the exercise of government rights infringes upon individual rights, leading to resentment from some people. There might be underlying reasons. There might be residual political grievances from the crisis, or like other grievances that probably does not have any relation to the COVID-19 situation, but because of COVID, they all came to the surface. And the second clash is the clashes between data collection versus privacy rights. We already seen this in several countries. For example, in Singapore, government is using Bluetooth-based application to track their citizens and residents on, their movements during the COVID-19 period. Also in Indonesia, similarly doing the same thing. But there are also other countries that, use it right away, the network of the cell phones. Not even asking for the consent of their citizens in terms of tracking the movements. So there will be possibility of an increased lawsuits and breach of privacies. We've seen this before in EU Google litigation, and we've also seen it before in the census decision of the German Constitutional Court in 1983, where privacy rights needed to be enforced by a court order when it comes to data collection of some sorts from the efforts of the government. And then the third legal implication, possibly we have already seen in all over the world, specifically the developing world, is the difficulty in conducting court trials. Because of the possible contagion, courts are having difficulty in having proceedings, face-to-face proceeding, like the traditional proceedings, and they move to digital platform to conduct trials online. This is not a problem for the developed world, where they already digitalize all the process. But in developing world, like Indonesia, like my country, it depends on where the court is, or what court it is. If it's like in the city, we won't not have any problem because we have internet and there are infrastructure. But if it's the court is like in a rural area, then it is a problem. Like in Kyrgyzstan, for example, the trial are still conducted in person, but the audiences are not allowed to be present in the court proceedings. So the fourth possible legal implication is the inability to perform contractual obligation This is when we see that it's unfair for tenants to pay rent even when there are no customers, because we have seen like mall closures, like services areas closures. But on the other hand, landlords also need to pay their utility bills. So some people might think, okay, we can use the force majeure doctrine. The clauses would be effective, but we need to see also the background of where you are, like in terms of, you know, the locality, and in terms of what kind of system that the country is taking. So whether it is civil law or common law, there will be differences in terms of implementation when we talk about force majeure. Okay, so and then I'm trying to link COVID-19 impacts to climate change impacts. So instead of looking at how bad it is, I'm trying to sort of relate these two things as something that is, you know, understandably somehow similar. So first, the issue, I think that the similarity is both linked to rapid change. Like many public health measures have been swiftly implemented to stop the spread of the virus. So we see closure of places of worships, we see closure of schools, workplaces, malls, etc. It's a rapid change for some people, and they don't like it. In some countries, we've seen even, you know, demonstrations and riots just because of this, you know, rapid change that we experienced during COVID-19. But you know, when we compare this to climate change impact would also, you know, occur very rapidly. Natural disasters, displacements, and deaths will just, you know, they're already taking place. So both are in rapid change, and probably it will be so hard for people to comprehend. And the second similarity is on highlight stranded assets, specifically on fossil fuel industry that would be adversely affected if the country shift from fossil fuels to renewables during climate change impacts. And we've seen this, like a preview of this in COVID-19, because we have seen how the prices of fossil fuels plummeted in April 2020. So we know that it's going to be going up again, like somehow after this pandemic ends. But in terms of the climate change impacts, when it's done, then, you know, there's no turning back. Okay, like the last similarity and dissimilarity of the impacts between COVID-19 and climate change is the media role, how these two issues are portrayed differently, framed differently. Climate change impacts are always framed as a future event, like it will happen maybe in the near future, maybe in 10 years, right? But like the fact is, when we look at IPCC reports of, you know, 1.5, the special report, we see that, you know, the world will have 1.5 degree increase of temperature if everybody is still emitting greenhouse gases the way we are from in 1930 to 1952. No, sorry, in 2030 to 2052. So it's scientific report is already there, like the data is already there. So it's not, you know, it's not future events, it's already here. We have seen countries losing islands, right? But on the other hand, in the media, COVID-19 is portrayed as very urgent and very deadly. So like almost every time we see like the increase of victims, the increase of people get, you know, contagions, etc. in you know, in real time in almost all countries in the world. So what I'm trying to say here is that COVID-19 pandemic is only a preview of what we will see for the climate change impacts. So the illness, deaths, injuries due to COVID-19 is a mere fraction to the injuries, illness, and deaths that would result from climate change impacts. So we already have extreme weather and climate events. We already have malnutrition. We already have malaria, dengue, heat stress. It's just going to be worse if we don't do anything about it. So I think I end my talk there. I'm looking forward for the question and answer section. Thank you.